Grazie.
Thank you, and welcome, and I do wish you a very nice festive season. I'll touch upon 3 issues and then I'll take questions. The first issue is Brexit. An agreement was found because of the cooperation across the 3 institutions, and the European Parliament team certainly played an important role, and that now marks the starting point, which is positive, but it's certainly not the point of arrival yet. We're happy with the agreement that has been found now, because we think that a lot of the points that we wanted to obtain have been obtained. As a political group in Parliament, we've given priority to defending the rights of EU citizens and, of course, UK citizens after Brexit. And in spite of the reluctance on the part of the UK, we've avoided creating citizens, first-class and second-class citizens. And pension rights will now be guaranteed, health rights will be guaranteed, and also the right to family reunification. You can also transfer your rights to your children, future children, and also to future couples. And all of this using a procedure which will be straightforward and fairly easy to use from an administrative point of view. We'll make sure of that. Of course, there still needs to be a final agreement from Parliament. We need to look at the rights to move freely across the 27 member states on the part of UK residents, and we also need to look at the border in Northern Ireland. That continues to be a complex issue, and in spite of what Mrs May is saying, we do think that there is a contradiction inherent in the position taken by London. They're leaving the customs union and the EU, but they then want this intangible border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. That said, we are on the right track, and if May can keep a very fragile majority together, we will be able to start negotiations, and that will then culminate, hopefully, in a fruitful result, which will then govern our future relations with them. My second issue then is Trump, who's very irresponsible. All I can do is condemn in the strongest possible terms the very dangerous statement Mr. Trump made in relation to Jerusalem. It's already led to violent clashes, not just in Jerusalem and in Palestine, but elsewhere in the world too. And there is a real risk of this having repercussions in the US and in Europe. I would call for calm, and to our Palestinian friends, I would say that the whole of Europe rejects the statement from Trump on its merit, but also in terms of the method that was used. And these sentiments have been echoed by Mrs. Mogherini too. And Jerusalem is to be a capital of 2 independent states who have respect for each other. And when these things happen, we shouldn't lose sight of history. Remember Bush's decision to invade Iraq. You know, and this is what caused the terrorism we see today, and it means that in Europe we now have victims of terrorism too, but nobody seems to remember what is at the origin of all of this, and that is the bad choices that were made by the Bush administration at the time. And now the same mistakes are happening. Quite rightly, the previous American presidents didn't turn Jerusalem into the capital of Israel. Trump didn't have to do that, but he did. He wanted to strengthen his ties with the Israeli extremists that do exist in the US, but he's lost sight of the real risk that he has created, and unfortunately I fear that we will see the fallout of this over the next months and years. And of course, Mr. Netanyahu doesn't play a particularly positive role in all of this either. Then my last point is on Schengen. We've asked and obtained a priority discussion on the extension of Schengen to Bulgaria and Romania. And as soon as all of the conditions are met, it would also be extended to cover Croatia. We want to put pressure on Council and on the Member States, and we want to make sure that political commitments that have been undertaken are respected. Romania and Bulgaria in particular can no longer be treated as second-class countries, and with the Bulgarian presidency looming large on the horizon, we will make sure that Council can now finally take the necessary steps to extend Schengen to them.
Pittella, are there questions from your side? Yes, please indicate your name and medium. Merci.
Buongiorno, Salvatore.
Answer, Sartolusa. Now, Gilles Parmier, who's a French socialist in your group, is working to organize coordination to support Macron, and this across the political spectrum in the EP. Now, you're president of the S&D group. What's your view of that initiative taken by your member? Well, at the moment, this seems to be Barnier individual initiative. And I think, he has to explain his initiative to the French socialist delegation and to the group to see whether or not it is appropriate for him to remain within the socialist delegation of France and the socialist group. But it's certainly not an official position, as far as I'm concerned. And frankly, I think these are just rumours that are doing the rounds at the moment. There's nothing official. And it's very abstract. We have no names. We don't know what the platform is. We don't know what their intentions are. So I do think this is much ado about nothing.
Yes. First question there, and then Catherine, please.
Monsieur le Maléjean.
President.
Oui, là.
I'm over here in the corner. The delegation of the European Parliament, including members of your parties, have simply been rejected at the conference of the HTP a couple of days ago. What's your view of that? Because no reasons were stated.
Il y avait le procès.
We're talking about the co-presidents of the HTP party in Turkey. The delegations from Europe, parliamentarians and journalists, were excluded from that particular hearing.
Come vuoi che io commenti?
Well, how do you expect me to comment? Well, negatively. And it's, not the first time I've said this. I was in the Turkish courts, and I've seen with my own eyes how trials are carried out there. There's delay, and there's a general approach to exclude international guests and journalists. And that seems to me to be trampling underfoot democracy and freedom. And it's not just today that we are making our views clear. We think that Erdogan is in fact moving away from liberal democracy.
Sorry, Catherine Fior, EU reporter. Another question about Mr. Pagnot. Macron was obviously a member of the cabinet of François Hollande, a socialist president of the French Republic. Do you think if Hollande can work with Macron in the past as part of a socialist government, your group could also work with Macron?
Guardi, chiariamoci.
Well, look, let's get this straight once and for all. We work with everyone. Anyone who shares ideas and projects with us. Now, if Macron really wants to have a European stance, then, well, you know, we got there before Macron, frankly. Don't imagine that Macron invented being on the side of Europe. No, we got there first. Now, if you've got allies on that particular road, well, they're most welcome. But Macron's one thing, socialists are another, and they should not be blurred together. It could be that, you know, the fact is that he's a liberal, we're socialists. He's got economic and social ideas that are very, very different from our own. But if we can agree on an approach to Europe, that's one thing. Other subjects will see us divided. That's it, full stop. I hope that's clear. Another fact that he may have been part of Hollande's cabinet is not a relevant point. You know, people can change their minds after all in the course of their lives. Now, it's not a crime to change your mind, but are you saying you're following somebody simply because once upon a time they were a member of the Socialist cabinet?
Anna Vandensky, Brussels Diplomatic. I have first question on Jerusalem, because I was also wondering, like Prime Minister Netanyahu said, why European Union and you, as a socialist, you didn't condemn the violence outbreak after the declaration of Jerusalem. And second question about Catalonia. Unfortunately, I have to continue ask it because 50,000 Catalans came to Brussels lately to ask for freedom of their politicians. So what is your response to these people?
We are against any form of violence, whatever justification is proffered. And therefore, we say that the decision of Trump is deeply mistaken and it's going to have consequences, but we call for people to refrain from violence. They can react using politics, using civil and democratic means of protest, but they must not resort to violence. That's the first point. Point two, on Catalonia, our position has been stated. I'm pleased that people are able to demonstrate, because any civil demonstration is an act of participation. Now, if you got, 50,000, 100,000 people demonstrating in Brussels, well, they're most welcome to do so. But on the merits, we continue to state that the independence of a territorial area has to be taken forward in respect of the Constitution and the law. Now, it's not because Gianni Pittella and A and other get together one day that they can call for a particular area to be independent. That's the path to anarchy. And one has to act within the confines of a constitution and existing legislation. If that legislation is inappropriate, then legislation and the laws have to be changed through the parliamentary process, as indeed the Spanish socialists have contemplated. Are there further questions? Yes?
Merci, Enrique Serveto.
Enrique Serveto. I'd like to know what you think about the most recent agreement on Brexit and the Irish border in particular. Do you think it's sufficiently clear? Do you think it's a good starting point?
Sì, lei è arrivato più tardi.
Well, you arrived a little later, I think. I had actually said that this is a good starting point as an agreement, but when it comes to the border within the island of Ireland, the situation remains complex and vague. There's deep contradiction built into London's position. They want to exit the single market and the customs union, but they say that there will be an intangible border that will persist between Northern Ireland and Ireland. So this is very vague, and it's a contradictory position, frankly, but we have at least started moving in the right direction.
Are there other questions still? Yes, please go ahead.
Angela Fusi from Hungary, from Pesti Srácok, and I have a question about migration and about Hungary. An interview you said that if any member state fails to do so, the Commission must get serious and
Il faut pousser sur le micro. That we.
You need to press the button to switch on your microphone again.
Yes. Okay. Please take the other one. Merci. Okay.
Okay. So my question is that what kind of sanction do you think can work? Today, Hungary wrote that it's no way to accept this plan.
Iniziamo a chiarire che non si parla.
Well, let's just clarify that we're talking about refugees and asylum seekers and not migrants in that case, because often, even without knowing, you send out very misleading messages to the public. The relocation scheme is for refugees and asylum seekers, not for economic migrants. And there's an obligation, not the option of taking in these people. And there will be penalties. I don't know what interview you're referring to, but I referred to a mechanism where those who would implement the measures which are foreseen under EU legislation would be awarded. And I'll be very frank and say that an Orban government and a country such as Hungary refusing to take in 1,000 refugees is something that strikes me as odd. A country of the size of Hungary cannot allow itself not to take in 1,000 refugees when other countries such as Germany, France and Italy are taking in hundreds of thousands of refugees. It's not the right spirit. There is no solidarity, and you need solidarity when you're part of the European Union.
I think we have treated all questions. Thank you very much and have a good rest of this week and end of the year. Merci.
Na, most megműködik. Az előbb meg nem értem.
Problem is blocked with the head over.